Welcome to the Metamorphosis podcast, hosted by Aaron Howe in the United States and myself, Nora Brucker in Germany. In this podcast, we talk to people about transformation and the moments and events that change us. We hope you enjoy. Any TV show junkies like me out there? I can seriously binge watch a show in a record amount of time, and when I do find one that I really enjoy, I definitely get too invested. One of my favorite franchises on TV are the Chicago One shows. Most people know them as Chicago Fire, Chicago PD, and Chicago Med. I've watched all episodes a million times, and I actually just had a binge fest during these crazy times of the pandemic. Little did I know that this podcast, born out of a longing for telling people's fascinating life stories and diving deep into the diversity of human beings, would actually bring me closer to these TV shows. Because today, we have a very special guest for you. In this episode, Aaron and me are talking to Tommy Bird, who has an impressive list of TV shows and movies on his IMDb page. From working with Cher on the movie Mermaids to adding shows like Skinner CSI Miami to his repertoire, Tommy has worked on numerous film sets as assistant director. His most important and favorite part? Well, that is nothing less than Chicago PD. Tommy worked from the very first day on the success of the show and built a strong foundation with the cast and crew. But his path has not always just been the ups and downs of typical Hollywood. In 2003, he was diagnosed with Hodgkin's lymphoma. 3 years of doctor visits, 9 operations, and chemotherapy treatments while working 14-hour days of shooting followed until Tommy actually won the battle against cancer. As if that wouldn't have been enough, after over a decade of being in remission, he actually got diagnosed with Parkinson's, and that at the peak of his career. With us, Tommy speaks about the second earth-shattering diagnosis in his life, and he does so for the very first time in public. We talk about the many moments of his life that changed everything, how he managed to stay positive through all of his hardship, about the film industry and all of its facets, and also about his upcoming book, a very honest look behind the scenes of the industry. Don't forget to show us your love and leave us your thoughts after listening to this episode. Here we go.
I grew up in Boston, and I went to Boston College, which was not a film school. I didn't have a choice. So I just got out of college, and I heard there was a broadcast programming job, which is Boston College wants their kids to wear suits and ties, not be technical like film people. So I went to Vermont. I missed the job by a day, and I stayed at my friend's house. And I just work in a factory for digital computer factory. I just started working on the assembly line. Mm-hmm. Came back to Boston, heard what a PA was. I said, let me try that. Sent out 9 resumes. Only heard from one guy, and he was on the 9/11 flight later.
Wow.
But they brought me in, and since I didn't have a technical background, I was a PA on a commercial. Mm-hmm. PA's production assistant. I didn't know what I was doing. I just stood there. So the director said, I never want that guy on the set again.
Oh no.
So I heard what a grip house was. That's where the lighting and grip equipment is. Mm-hmm. So I started loading grip trucks. The same company a year later with a different director. They're going through resumes. And they said, what about this guy? And they said, well, this director doesn't like him. Well, it was a new director, and I was a big guy. Now I came back, I knew the equipment. So I was like a house on fire. I was just kicking ass. So they said, if you want to be an AD, which is what I wanted to be, because I saw ADs, I saw how cool they were, go to LA. Mm-hmm. So I drove cross country to LA. Started looking for jobs, got a job, got a car. In the first 5 days of the shoot, I got my car stolen, my brand new car stolen, and my fired from the job.
Oh no. What a
So
start to go to Los Angeles.
exactly. So I just started working in nightclubs and factories again. I started getting jobs, and I started doing good as an AD. I mean, that's the real thumbnail
Mm-hmm.
of my career in film business.
What was it about the AD that seemed so cool that made you want to do that?
Well, it was a twofold question because I'm not a small person. So when I was on the set, I would unload the catering truck, then unload the grip truck, then help craft service set up. So I was just busting my ass. I said, I'm not going to make it if I keep doing this. I was on a shoot. I wish I could, it's in the book. I wish I could remember the shoot. But this AD was just running things, joking, making things come along. I said, I want to do that.
So it's not necessarily the task that you knew, but it was like you saw someone and you're like, I want to be that person.
I was at there's a famous bar in Boston called Doyle's, JP Doyle's.
Mm-hmm.
And I was a day player grip, and we were putting duvetine, which is the black cloth, to black out this bar. And we sit on the scaffolding and watch. And this guy was just, one of his jokes was he was making it happen, and the phone rang, and the phone should have been off. And he said, if that's the Love Boat, tell him I'm available. I mean, he was just rocking and rolling.
Mm-hmm.
So I just said, I want to be that.
Uh-huh.
And I knew I just didn't want to be lifting things heavy for the rest of my life.
Mm-hmm. So what exactly does an assistant director actually do? Like, what's the day-to-day job?
They're the foreman.
Okay.
They schedule the job. I get a lot into it in the book. I schedule the job. I decide the call times. I gauge the lighting. A good friend of mine, Vicky Rhodes, once said, it's like the person who makes sure if you put a big order for food, it makes sure all the plates come out at the same time. Everything's got to come in. So you've got to, coax some departments. You've got to be the bad guy in other departments, so to make sure everything comes out. Because if anyone screws up, you're still responsible to make your day, which is the call sheet is all the stuff on the call sheet. And you have to make your day, get everything on the call sheet. And you really don't have much excuses.
Mm-hmm. So you're kind of holding all of the strings of everything that is happening at a production.
Yeah, I like to say the foreman because I've done factory work, and actually I've worked at 13 different bars and restaurants, and I say that was my best training. I didn't go to film school because the Boston College was not a technical. Matter of fact, my master's of television teacher said, "Film, yuck, chemicals." Now you can't find film. You can't find a roll of film.
Right. I was going to say, so back to Nora's other question is, what was your first project that you can say you did? My
first big job as a PA was Kenny's in Massachusetts. It was a miniseries. And the takeaway was I was responsible for walkie-talkies. I had 75 walkies.
Oh my God.
I had to give them out during the beginning of the day, and I'd have to get them at the end of the night. And Grips Electrics would, I don't know how it, but they were my responsibility. So I would walk around with a big milk crate on my shoulder going, where are my walkies? Where are my walkies? That was just, I worked on Mermaids, the next film.
Oh my God, I love Mermaids. Love
the movie.
Yes. And I have a picture of me carrying Christina Ricci on my shoulder when she was 9 years old.
Aww.
That's how I get her to set. She would want to, ride on my shoulder.
Oh, that's fantastic.
It is so fun.
Yeah, I kind of remember that. I worked as a production assistant for the European Championship in soccer, actually. And so I remember having 4 different languages screamed into my ear.
Wow, did you know all 4?
Well, I mean, I speak French. So yes, I was able to understand the French one. It was German, it was English, and it was actually Swiss German. So after a while you understand it, but in the beginning it's like, what?
I know how to say hurry up in 6 languages because that's what an Navy does.
That's good. That's obviously fantastic. So you did your when was the first time where you actually worked as an assistant director? What was that job?
Well, it's funny because it's a Mermaids thing. I came out to LA and Winona Ryder was on Mermaids, was dating Johnny Depp.
Yeah.
So Johnny reached out to me and said, I want you to AD this film for me. My nickname was Berkey back then. I didn't believe he was in earnest, but I figured when is actors have flighty schedules. But there I was on a short film ADing for Johnny Depp, and I did all right. So I said, I want to continue this. Now I should have started as a second, and gone to first, but with my scattered life, I just said, I'll be an AD. That's the story of my life. I just go for it. I
That's awesome.
just, as I like to say, I jump off the building and figure out how to build a parachute on the way down.
Johnny Depp is from my hometown, as a side note.
Oh, my toes. Dropping names on my toes.
He's like our one claim to fame. Like,
No, Erin, you are the claim to fame.
oh, okay, thank you.
I mean, we never know what's going to happen with Erin's career, right? She might be as famous as
True.
Johnny Depp eventually.
It's true.
So what was life in Los Angeles like in the beginning of your like film career? That was in the 90s, right?
It was the 90s. It was tough. The film I was a second was the boom of the film business. It was the 80s. So people were just going from film to film. It was kind of winding down the 90s.
Mm-hmm.
But I would have to break into the production office to fill out the production report. I mean, it was just so plethora of films that everyone was, phoning it in. So I just, but I remember the Friday before the Monday of my first day as a second, and I put in a couple days for free for prep.
Mm-hmm.
I was walking around with the office supplies walking up and down the streets of Hollywood going, no. I couldn't find my car. Brand new cherry red Escort GT.
Oh man,
such a nice car.
Yeah, it was. And I put a lot of money down because I saved money on Mermaids. I stayed at home, and I had to put a lot of cash on it because I wanted to get the payments down. And the dealership made me bring my taxes because they said, if you're putting this much money down in cash, you must be a drug dealer. So I had to get my tax report.
So, I mean, you've worked on like quite a lot of famous TV shows, like Desperate Housewives and CSI Miami and It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia. Do you have some like fondest memories that you can share of that, like, or somebody that you worked with where you were like, that person actually surprised me positively or negatively, but just like just some things that you can share from this like other world, obviously, for all of us.
The best show I worked on was the last show I worked on.
We can immediately go into Chicago PD if you want to. It's like I love the Chicago universe, the Chicago One universe, and I absolutely love Chicago PD. And you've been working there obviously for quite some time from the very beginning, right? The very first episode.
Yes, but my book is about, because I could go on for days about the bad people in the business, and I mean, I could just make a 5-book set.
I bet.
About all the.
I want a list.
I want to, like my podcast. It brings out the good people.
Yeah.
I want to show the decent people in this business. And Chicago PD was my last experience, but it was the best. It was like a family.
Oh.
It was really great.
What do you think set that aside? Like, how did that?
Yeah, it was different from the others.
What was different?
The producer and the director, Mark Tinker and Terry Miller, because they set a tone.
Yeah.
It was fun. They were there for the crew. They made a camaraderie. It was tough. I mean, when you're out in January at midnight outside shooting a scene, you've got to have a good attitude.
Yeah.
And the cast was amazing. Just super people.
Do you have some specific moments where like this is, shareable? I know you told us about when you left that they actually, put a little bit of a tidbit in the TV show.
Well, one of the great things is like Uh, I'm Boston. I wear my Boston on my. I've been back there for 30. Lived there for 30 years.
But you bleed
But
Boston.
yes, I carry. It's like if there was medals, I'd have them.
Mm-hmm.
And the first season, Jason Begay, the lead actor, was in his trailer waiting to come to set, and the Red Sox were in the World Series the last game, and Jason Begay was texting me the play-by-play. I mean, you got some actors that don't even come to set when they call it, and he was sitting in there texting me the play-by-play. Marina Squarciati.
I love her. Love her.
I don't know if you want to get into my diagnosis, but she offered to go to the doctors with me. So Royce, Jesse Lee, and John Cena were like co-workers. I mean, they were actors, but they had no attitude. They were amazing. They were just great. And it was just a great experience. The last experience was the greatest.
So it was just the right group of people together at the right circumstances.
You want to tell about that?
The second to last episode, Carl Seaton, a great director, knew it was my last episode. They had a set, a bar, a simple Irish bar.
Mm-hmm.
And they took it upon themselves to call it Tommy Burke's Bar. And they had a sign that was 20 feet by 5 feet outside the bar saying Tommy Burke's. And it's still on the stage. They still have it above the stage as a homage to me.
That is fantastic. Absolutely fantastic.
I made some great friends there, really lifelong friends.
Yeah. That is great. I mean, that is kind of what we all wish for when we go for a job, that it's not just a job, but it's also, the people that you work for and the people that you work with that are, closer to you than just random people that you see for a long period of your day, every single day, obviously. And, especially in your business, long, long days.
It was the toughest job I ever did, and it was the best job I ever did.
So what did you do on can you describe like a day on the set of Chicago PD for you personally? What did that look like for you?
Well, first you have a call time and you get everyone on set and you go through a read through with the actors. And then you do a read through for the crew, and then they start lighting and you get the actors through hair and makeup. One of my favorite stories is John Cena was such a great guy that he would come early to set before his call time. And there was a day that we were behind of schedule because I kicked ass as an AD. People are going to roll their eyes at that one. But John Cena, we were ahead of schedule. He's the next scene. He ran to his trailer to get ready for hair and makeup so he wouldn't be waiting on him.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that's unheard of in the film business.
Yeah, I bet. Yeah. Well, it sounds like a great experience, and I'm very happy that this was also, I'm not happy that it was your last experience in TV, obviously, but that you left the show business with a good memory. You know what I mean?
I did a last big show I did was a Netflix. They're refilming it, parts of it.
Oh,
a Netflix special for the 18th Amendment about African Americans getting the vote.
Yeah.
I've got some huge actors. I mean, I met some. That was another great thing, and it was a set of love.
Mm-hmm.
Everyone had no attitude. It was amazing. So
that was your last
yes
job in the film business. Okay.
And I mean, the last two jobs were just amazing.
That's great. Do you know when the documentary is coming out?
No, they're refilming it with filming additional with Will Smith and Brad Pitt.
Okay. Great. Well, let's dive a little bit into some darker topics. You were actually working on a hit show when you were diagnosed with cancer, right? What show did you work on back then?
That was Skin. It was a great show with Rod Silver, a great producer director, Jim Leonard, who backed me up. I write in the book. It's a telling chapter where I had just done my first chemo.
Mm-hmm.
And I was in a meeting and I was almost sliding off the sofa during the meeting, like, because it was hitting me.
Mm-hmm.
And I had to go to Jim Leonard and say, because he fought for me to be on that show. He fought for me. And this is his first big series. And he could have said, Tom, I know you're going through a lot. I got to get someone that's healthy because this is a big show. It's a big deal. He just said, thanks for telling me and keep up the good work.
And I mean, you did like a lot. You did not just, I mean, you got the life-changing diagnosis, obviously, cancer. And then, a lot of people would just focus on treating cancer, but next to treating cancer, you also work 16 hours a day on that show. And after, shooting, you went to the hospital to get your chemo treatment, which is insane. That must have been that must have taken a huge toll on you, like mentally, physically as well, right?
Yeah, but you break it down in stages. I mean, I was raised with a good work ethic. So what I would do is just plan for Thursday to get my blood cell count, because you can't take chemo if your white cells are not good enough.
Mm-hmm.
I get that checked. And then Thursday night, I would go to the Cedars-Sinai 24-hour cancer. Not many people know this, but there's 24-hour chemo at Cedars-Sinai. And there'd be no one hardly there. It was eerily quiet. I remember one time there was a guy coughing every 10 minutes, and that's the only noise you heard. And you get 4 hours of chemo, and you couldn't sleep because it was just, you couldn't. And I do the 4 hours of chemo, and then I get the next day and started another day of shooting. And then the weekend I would sleep. And it's funny with chemo, it's the only time you fall asleep and you wake up more tired because the chemo is taking effect.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I picked Thursday because chemo hits you not right afterward, it hits you a day afterwards.
Mm-hmm.
So I figured Thursday I'd take the chemo, Friday night it started hitting me. And Saturday, Sunday, I'd sleep the whole weekend. And then Monday it felt like it was run over by a truck. Tuesday I felt better. And 2 weeks later, I'd start the whole process again.
Wow. I mean, that is a lot. Like, I mean, what was your emotional state at that time? Like,
You just punch in, you just dig in. I mean, it was my first time with a big series. It was a Bruckheimer series.
Yeah.
So it was like getting chosen for the Patriots. I mean, this is the big time. And I didn't want to bow out. And all I know is just buckle through it. You just hunker down and make it happen.
Did you have a support system at that time?
Well, I didn't tell anyone on the show because I didn't want special treatment. So the producer and the production manager knew. Directors coming in knew. A lot of directors were so supportive. David Grossman was a director I worked with, and I screwed up. Maybe because of the chemo, maybe I was overwhelmed, but I forgot to call an actor in for an earlier scene. The 2 scenes could have been shot as one. And David, being the constant pro, said, I'll just shoot it this way, because I rush called him. He said, if he shows up, I'll shoot it this way. If he doesn't, I'll shoot it this way. And I kept apologizing. The only time he got mad was like, listen, I got it covered. Stop it. It's fine. And he was great.
So did you feel like you were pretty much alone with your cancer treatment and diagnosis and going through all of that if you haven't really talked to the people that you were working with? I mean, such a huge amount of your day. I can't imagine. That must have been really, really hard. You're really tough.
It was. I won't tell you. Should I tell you how I drove home from an operation once?
Sure.
Or is that just going to freak people out?
No, I think it probably happens more than what you realize.
So at the beginning of the pilot for this show, they kept pushing the pilot back because of hiccups. And I scheduled an operation. Mm-hmm. So it was at the end of the day production, at the end of the day of work. I go there. I have one friend that's picking me up from the operation. Another friend's supposed to pick up my car. The person who picks up me the operation, I get in their car. The other friend doesn't show up. So I needed my car for the next day for work. So I told the friend, take me to my car. I need something out of it. I just got in the car and said, I got to go to work. I need the car. So I drove home.
Oh my God.
But it wasn't that big a deal because it was LA traffic and it was Friday.
You were stuck in traffic, basically.
Yes,
Just
exactly.
rolling.
So I wasn't on the highway going 50 miles, 60 miles an hour.
You were on the highway going 1 mile per hour.
I was on side streets, not even that. I was on rush hour traffic and, you go to the next stoplight, go to the next stoplight, but you got to get it done in the film. Film business doesn't care about excuses. They
Yeah,
just,
I guess, yeah, I get that, kind of, but it's also, I mean, obviously very hard. But I understand, you were on this big show, and I understand, like, I probably would have done the exact same thing. I know myself, but
I don't know if I should compliment you or make fun of you.
you can choose.
Because when I tell the story about the operation, it's a perverse joy. When I tell people about driving over for the operations, I see their eyes go big as saucers. They're like, who is this freak? When I went through chemo for 6 episodes and I just buckled down, and I remember getting up from the bed from the last one and saying to myself, well, that's over with. And my body started spasming.
Yeah.
I think my body's like saying, my subconscious saying, well, if you're not going to acknowledge this, we will.
Yeah.
So it just started shaking and like saying, it was like letting go of all the, it's like reaching the finish line and your body just acknowledging that.
Wow. So how long was the chemotherapy going on? Like how many weeks?
6 episodes every 2 weeks.
Every 2 weeks. Okay. And what was the time after? I mean, obviously you're not sure what's going to happen. Have I, did I beat it or not? And you were still working obviously a lot. Like what was the time like after the treatment and going forward?
Well, the funny part is I had to take radiation, and that was every day.
Mm-hmm.
And I couldn't do that. I said, that's impossible. So I said, I got to leave. And they shut down to retool the scripts.
Mm-hmm.
So it was ironic. And they shot a little bit more, and then they pulled the plug. It was a great show. But when I was done with one of my favorite quotes is my oncologist, because I would call him Rosie. I would come into he's Roosevelt, and all the nurses go, you can't call him that. Like, why not? He's a doctor. I'll call him whatever I want.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember saying to him after all my treatments, I said, doctor, am I normal? And he, with a smile, said, Tommy, you're never going to be normal, but you're in remission.
Well, that's obviously fantastic.
Yeah.
And can I ask what type of cancer did you have?
Hodgkin's stage 2B.
Lymphoma. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, one of my best friends, she had that as well. She was 30. But I mean, there's not a lot to say about that. It's a horrible disease.
Well, my doctor said, I probably could have gotten through the treatments just by doing them. I mean, it wasn't that bad of treatments. I just made it harder than it needed to be.
Probably because you did not rest, right?
Exactly.
Yeah. So when you actually got diagnosed, was that because you had symptoms already? Did you have like a lump on your neck or something? Or like, how did that happen? Was it out of the blue?
There was a lump under my arm.
Oh, under your arm. Okay.
And my next door neighbor, who was a doctor, said, it's just a flu. Just don't worry about it. And the thing is, I was tough to diagnose. I went through three biopsies before they could figure out it was cancer.
Wow.
So, and I went through a bunch of biopsies afterwards because they were worried that, I'm tough to diagnose. So
Mm. And I mean, your hardship kind of did not end, obviously, because even though you went into remission and the cancer did not come back, later on you got diagnosed with Parkinson.
Yes, I'm going through Parkinson's right now. The fourth year of Chicago PD, my arm was at a 25-degree angle all the time.
Mm-hmm.
And I was concerned. So I went to a neurologist. First, I thought it was a stroke. And every time I walked to a hospital, I was like, well, if you think it's a stroke, you're going to the hospital right now.
Mm-hmm.
So I went to a neurologist, and he had me walk up and down the hallway. And he went to his office. He made some notes. He left the office. And it was just like a weird moment. I said, I've got Parkinson's. For some reason, it just hit me like that. He came in, told me I had Parkinson's. And I went to a neurologist who deals with Parkinson's in Chicago. And I said to her, I want a second opinion. And she smartly said, this is your second opinion. You have it. Because one of the things I like to speak about is a lot of people don't take the diagnosis to heart and start exercising. They're in denial, and they don't work with their body.
Yeah.
Because, as I told you, it's like if you haven't smoked and you get diagnosed with lung cancer and you go home and you start smoking 3 packs a day. I mean, once you get diagnosed, you've got to start moving. So people are in denial, and they don't exercise. I mean, I brutal exercise every day. I mean, I'm sore from my exercising, but I know that's what you got to do. I mean, that's the main treatment for Parkinson's.
So it's use it or lose it.
Yeah, it's like being the Tin Man
Mm-hmm.
in Wizard of Oz. If you don't keep it lubricated,
Yeah,
you're just going to regress.
Yeah. Did I hear you right that you almost like self-diagnosed though before the doctor even said it?
Well, it was more of a weird moment. I was sitting in there, and I said, it just came out of nowhere in my head, like, you've got Parkinson's. And it was a mystery moment that I came in and said, you told me I had my diagnosis. So it was weird. It was just a weird story.
Yeah.
Sometimes you just have a feeling even before the doctors. Yeah. So what does your life look like right now? Like, you've been diagnosed. How long did you stay working?
I stayed for another year. The neurologist, Chicago, said I should keep working. You know, we know that I don't shirk from hardships, but working on that show it's tough. You're outside, and I mean, that crew is amazing. They work outside in sometimes 20-degree weather.
Mm-hmm.
I was always the AD that said to the writer, you know, this would be a great scene inside. And they would say to me, if we keep it inside, we might as well move it back to LA.
Yeah, to Los Angeles. That's right.
They had a point. They had a point. You're there for Chicago. It's this, and the people, the background was amazing. It was just, everyone had a great attitude. But after a year, I said, I gotta take care of myself. I smartened up.
No, I mean, obviously, I can totally understand how hard that must have been to leave this job that you love and the people that were obviously also supportive of you. Did they know? Because you said that you didn't tell the people at Skin that you had cancer, but did you tell people at Chicago PD that you had Parkinson?
Yeah, I think it was more of a family. I'd spent more time than Chicago PD. I mean, than Skin. So Skin was just a few people. Chicago PD was a family. That was a family. So I want to share my family. And what the crew members would do is they would help me with the diagnosis and help me work through the Parkinson's. And a lot of crew members would come up and they would tap my hand and say, keep it moving. I mean, they looked after me. And like I said, just great people.
That's fantastic.
So how long has it been since you quit working?
2 years.
2 years.
And you have not been obviously completely without a project because you've started writing your own book, right? Do you want to tell us a little bit more about that?
I mean, what I've told you, a sixth of what is in the book.
I mean, we're happy to hear all of the other juicy details as well. The good, the bad, the horrible.
Well, if I get another podcast, I'll say, let me tell you what's like talking to Nora and Larry.
That's obviously the good part of it.
Yeah, there we go. I'm writing a book. It's about starting the business, the mishaps, the positives, what my job's about, how to get in the film business, the good parts, the bad parts. It's a lot like my podcast, which I talk about the good people in the business.
Yeah.
My podcast is called Not Just Sunglasses and Autographs, and I hope my book's the same way. I hope to call the book the same thing.
So specifically in your podcast, you also said that you want to highlight decent people in the film business. Like, why do you choose this specific topic? I mean, obviously, us, normal people out here who are just binge watching TV shows and, going to the movies and stuff like that. We're obviously, always having this fancy image of the industry, even though you hear a lot of, gossip and things like that. And you want to have, all of the juicy details. So we know that there's probably not everybody very nice in that industry. But why did you specifically choose to highlight, decent people like John Cena you have on your podcast, for example? Like what, why that?
Well, because why focus on the negative? I mean, focus on the negative makes it negative. And I've had a great time in this business. I've always said leaving the business is it's like a divorce. I had a great time, but I have to move on. I missed the good times. And these people need to be singled out as just the great parts of the business. I mean, you can look at all the rags about how bad people are. And I wanted to show the good people in the business.
And you could probably have, done an interview with almost everybody at Chicago PD, huh?
Yeah, I could mention them in the book. And this podcast is the first time I've come out and said how great it was and specifically mention their names and give due.
Do they know that? Like, do they know that they're going to be in your book?
No, they don't even know. They don't even know I have a book.
They will now. But I mean, you only have good things to say about them. I don't know if you have any bad things to say about other people, but obviously I wouldn't mind, if somebody writes a book and says that I'm a good person. Obviously, especially
Nora, I'm just gonna tear you apart in the book.
Oh, I bet. The redheaded witch. And then I was on that weird podcast and there were those two redhead ladies. One of them was German. I mean, come on. And the other one was living in Rhode Island. How horrible.
How terrible. Could there be worse?
No, I mean, I don't think that we are as important as other people to be part of your book. But if you want to mention us, I mean, fine.
We'll see how the final edit comes out of this podcast.
Yeah,
there you go.
Most definitely.
We'll have to make sure we're extra nice.
The Chicago PD people, maybe the background were great. There was just everyone was a pleasure to work with on that show. The people in the city were they would watch. They wouldn't. I mean, in LA, you'd try to do a show, and they just if you ask them to stop, so you're not in the shot, they don't care.
Yeah.
People in Chicago, the local people were so open to working with us. They were great.
Mm-hmm. Have you liked living in Chicago? Did you live for the most of the year in Chicago?
Yeah, I live downtown. I walk around every weekend. It's a great city.
Where do you live now? Have you stayed?
I'm in LA.
You're still in LA?
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, the sun is good if you want to go out and exercise and stuff like that.
Well, one of the things I do is every day I bike to the beach, walking the walk that I talk. I bike down to the beach. I run on the sand. I bike uphill back to my place 4 times a week. I swim. I've got to show, by example.
So Parkinson's, do you have good days and bad days, or do you just notice like a progressional thing, or what does that look like?
There's good days and bad news. Good days and bad days. I take medicine for it. I don't want to increase the medicine because if you take a lot of the medicine, it gets you the shakes. A lot of people don't know massive shaking is from the medicine. I want to get a cure. I mean, this is impossible. It's hard to believe that it's been around so long, and there are other diseases that got a lot of press.
Yeah.
The virus aside, obviously. But they're doing much better because Parkinson's is not considered a bad disease because a lot of people have it.
Okay.
And that's just, they've been saying for a long time, it's going to be a cure in 5 years. I'm sick of that. Because my theory is they say 5 years because if they said 15 years, no one would contribute money because they think it's too long a ways to get a cure.
Yeah.
If it was 2 years, they'd say, well, why do I need to contribute money? It's going to happen soon. I've got a paper cut compared to some people.
Right.
There are people, and you see them on TED Talks, who are just suffering horribly, and they deserve to have a cure.
Yeah, very true.
I'm a easy-go-lucky person, but when I find something, I believe it, I can become a bear. And they need to find cures. They need to fund cures. The virus aside, let's get a cure for the virus. But after the virus is cured, I'm going to be a royal pain in the ass with this book and speaking to her about we need to find a cure now. And not just for me, because like I said, I've got a paper cut compared to some people.
So what are the numbers on Parkinson's? How many people?
1 million people have it.
Diagnosed?
Diagnosed.
Do you think there's a bigger, like, dark number of, especially maybe in countries where they don't have like the best health system?
Yes, I mean in some countries where they just endure it.
Yeah.
It's a growing disease because a lot of people say Parkinson's is caused by metals, things in the environment.
Yeah.
And with more chemicals being introduced in the world, Parkinson's is one of the rapidly growing diseases. It's growing exponentially.
Have you ever felt like having obviously two major diseases that you were treated unfairly by life?
No.
You never felt sorry for yourself? I would have.
If you do that, I mean, I used to say I have a dark sense of humor. I like to say laughing through the tears. But there's a great story I heard where a reporter asked a boxer, do you have confidence in your abilities? And the boxer said, yes. And the boxer answered, if I don't, who will? If I don't believe in myself, I mean, when I had cancer, I never thought of mortality. When I got diagnosed by the doctor, the first thing I said to him was, so what are we going to do about it? I didn't break down. I said, we got a problem. Let's fix it. Same with Parkinson's. You just got to go with it and hope for the best.
That's obviously a great attitude. And I truly believe that if you are positive about, these type of things, I mean, you're allowed to break down a little bit and you're allowed to feel, sad about that. But I also feel like if you stay positive and you have something to fight for, that makes a major difference in people's lives and stories. And
well, if I fall apart, what's my backup?
True. Yeah. Do you know already approximately when the marketing of the book is going to start, or when people are going to hear more about it?
Well, that's a great question, Nora.
Thank you.
What I'd like to do is give out my Instagram account, Tommy_Burke, BURKE _DGA. which the DJs, the Directors Guild of America, the guild I belong to, one of the greatest organizations in the world. And my website is tommyburke.com because I want people to read. I have a website about cancer, and people have read it and taken solace in it. It's a very, one of the things I said in my website for cancer, I said the first installment was, I'm going to make cancer my bitch.
I like it.
Yes, because that's all I knew, and people have read it, and there's a lot of pictures of me with stars on it. So I want to be.
Yeah, I've stalked you on Instagram. I've seen a lot of stars, and on your website as well.
And also, if I want to reach out to people that if they have a positive film, I'd love to give my 2 cents about the pitfalls of it. I can't get your funding because it's the first thing you're going to say is, can you give me money? No, but I will read your script and say, these are some of the problems you're going to encounter, but only positive films, only life-affirming film. So, because 30 years of the film business, I still want to be a vital part of it. But through my Instagram and my website, most of my Instagram, I'll keep people up to date about when the book's coming out.
I really appreciate that you focus on positivity. You want to highlight the positive people. You don't want to bash the negative. You want to work on positive films. You don't want to contribute to the negative. I really like that.
Yeah, there's a lot of negative people in the business. I do touch about it a little bit on the negative in the book, but mostly I mention a lot of people, how great they were. I mean, I mentioned great things about Cher, Michael Sheffling, as long as we're on the mermaids rant. Michael Sheffling, remember who he was? Winona Ryder's love interest?
Yes.
Oh, yeah.
Yes.
It was, I tend to work on cold shows. It was brutally cold. And Michael Sheffling, he said to me, Berkey, if you want to hang out in my trailer to keep warm, that's cool. I mean, I'll kick you out if I need to. But, I mean, he was offering a PA chance to hang out in his trailer to keep warm. I mean,
that's wonderful.
How many actors would do that?
Not a lot.
And I talked about stunt guys that were amazing. I talk about how I was almost just beaten up by one stunt guy and the other one saved me. It's just amazing people in this business.
Yeah.
Huh.
So I hope people follow me on Instagram because I'll give updates. So what I want people from my book and my life to go is, Parkinson's is not a death sentence. Get out there and exercise. Attack it. Don't sit home and in misery. I want people to attack life with Parkinson's. I want them to be getting out and doing great things. I want people to read my book and go, look what he's been through. Go for it. Life is short. I've had a lot of bad luck and hiccups. Fine. Whatever. Keep moving. Keep striving. I would rather have someone say, because I like to inspire people, I'd rather have someone say, I got the Academy Award saying, thank you, Tommy Burke, for helping me get this Academy Award than winning an Academy Award. I like to be the catalyst for people.
It has been an honor to speak to Tommy Burke in this interview and to have him trust us with his story. Not just because it gave me the opportunity to geek out about one of my absolute favorite TV shows and to get an actual look behind the scenes, but also because it is a true inspiration to talk to someone with such a strong character like Tommy. To never lose your humor and your will to fight, and also your witty replies. That's truly impressive. Thank you, Tommy, for being the person that you are and for sharing with us. If you loved this episode just as much as we did, please leave us a review on Apple Podcasts or wherever you listen to your favorite podcasts, and we will see you next week. The Metamorphosis podcast is produced by Aaron Howe in the United States and me, Nora Brooker, in Germany. Thank you to all of our supporters, and of course a huge thank you to our guests who are telling us their stories from around the globe about change and life-changing moments. For more information about each episode, check out officialmetamorphosispodcast.com and follow us on Instagram at officialmetamorphosispodcast, for an exclusive look behind the scenes and our guests. We're happy for you to leave your thoughts on each episode, and we are very much looking forward to hearing from you. This is the Metamorphosis podcast with Erin and Nora.